Wait 1 second.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. We have a little bit of a different setup this week. We're outside trying to enjoy the weather. Um, Hopefully, you guys like the background. You'll let me know in the comments if you like this background during the summer. We could do this background. So, trying to make it as straight as possible. And there we go. Okay, welcome. So, this week's Parsha is Parsha's Nasai, the second Parsha in the book of Numbers. So, one of the highlights of this Torah portion is the priestly blessing. So we're going to go through some of the amazing things about the priestly blessing and what's the different customs about it and what is the message of the blessing. So this is Numbers 6:22. The Parsha says, the Torah tells us, God spoke to Moses, speak to Aaron and his son, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel, saying to them, and there's three blessings. Number one is, may God bless you and watch over you. May God shine his countenance on you and favor you. And may God turn his countenance to you and grant you peace. So three blessings. And then it says, they shall bestow my name upon the children of Israel so that I will bless them. So those are the three blessings. So, but the blessing, as we see in the last verse, actually comes from God. Even though it's given by the priest, it's come from God. Now, this mitzvah to give this blessing actually applies every single day. Every single day, the priest is supposed to give the blessing. And Maimonides actually discusses how it will work in the times of the temple, and he discusses how it works outside the temple in our times. So I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but essentially every single day after the completion of the sacrifices, the priests would go onto a special platform, and they would raise their hands above their heads, except the Kohen Gadol. He had his special tzitz, and he would not raise his hands above the tzitz because it has God's name. And they would say it, but instead of they would say it word by word, repeat after the person who would lead them. It was not a Kohen, and except they would make it one blessing. So instead of it being like nowadays we do as three blessings, as we'll see shortly, they actually did one blessing. Another difference was they would say the God's name the way it is written, the tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God. They would say it the way it's written. We have a special guest. Mayor is appearing in our class. Say hi, Mayor, to everybody. Okay. So they would say the God's name the way it is written, not the way it is pronounced, that we pronounce it usually. And eventually that tradition was lost. They stopped teaching the blessing the way it was, the God's name the way it was written, because they felt that if people would misuse it once the generations fell apart. And then Maimonides explains how it's done nowadays. Similar idea, the priests go up to the front of the synagogue during the repetition of the Amidah, and they spread their fingers, and they say it, but we say it as three separate blessings. And we say Amen following each blessing, not just following the last blessing. Okay, so what are the blessings, right? So we said God should bless you and protect you. That's the first one. So Rashi, in this week's Torah portion, says, what does it mean that God should watch over you? So he says, so that robbers don't take your money. A person who gives a gift cannot guard it well, right? So therefore, God is saying that God is different than any other gift giver. Every other gift giver gives it to you, and then that's it. It's now the responsibility is on you. But when it comes to God, he gives you the gift, and then he's also the guardian of the gift. So the $1 million question is, why are we talking about burglars, right? About robbers? It's very strange. Okay, God gives us a blessing. God gave us a blessing. Why are we saying someone's going to steal the blessing from you? What do you mean someone's going to steal the blessing? Especially something that came from God, right? How do you steal that? So, right? Oh, we're back. We're back. Okay, we're live. This is live television. It's the real thing. Okay, so when it comes to, we were talking about how God they could get stolen. So the truth is they can't get stolen, obviously. But even when God gives a blessing, for the blessing to be actualized, we know that sometimes there could be something that could block the blessing. For example, somebody sins, right? And we have this idea by Jacob. So let's go through this idea. Oh, okay, we're back. Okay. So when Jacob in Genesis, when Jacob was coming after being by 22 years from his by his father-in-law, his evil father-in-law, he's coming home, and Jacob says, he prays to God, and he says, all of the kindness. And what does Rashi explain? That he was afraid that right? Oh, we're back. Okay. All right. So try one more time. So Jacob says that even though he was blessed before, right, before he went to Haran, before he went to his father. Okay. iPhone. What's the password? Okay. Here we go. Yep. Hey. Hopefully it works. Okay. So, in this, so as we were saying, so when Jacob was running, okay, we're back. So when Jacob was going to Haran to his father-in-law, he was given a blessing by God, right? He had this dream, and God blesses him and says he's going to watch over him. But he says, maybe I have become small because I have sins, and God has given me so much already. Maybe I've used up my favors. So he asked God not to cash in, right? But he's saying I need a new blessing, right? Or to cash in on the blessing that already came, even though that I was already given the blessing. So we see this idea that somebody could be given a blessing and it could be stopped because of their sins. So that's kind of the idea that God says, Yivracha Hashem v'yishmerecha, right? That God says, I'm going to give you the blessing and I'm going to make sure you get the blessing. In other words, that the Shemirah, the guarding of the blessing, comes from a place higher than the blessing itself, right? Because the blessing could get stopped. God says, I'm giving you a blessing from a place that can't be stopped. That is the specialness of this blessing, that the priestly blessing that is given every day in the temple, we'll see when it's given outside of that. Okay. The next thing we see is that the next blessing is, actually the last blessing, is Yisa Hashem panav elacha, that may God turn his countenance towards you. And the similar idea, that God is turning his countenance, this idea is he's going beyond the letter of the law. Even though that by the law, maybe we're not deserving, God is saying, I'm turning my countenance towards you, that even though you may not deserve it, I'm going to give you the blessing. Okay. And the last part of the third blessing is Vayasem lecha shalom, and God will grant you peace. So now we know that peace is such an important thing. In fact, our sages tell us that peace is as valuable as everything else. So then the question is, why isn't peace the first blessing? Shouldn't peace be the first blessing? So the truth is that usually peace comes because there's a conflict. There's two things, they conflict each other, and therefore you need peace. So in this case, what is the peace of the blessing? So from this, we have to go back to a story about a man named Chani Hamagel, Chani the circle maker. And what he did was, he was a rabbi in times of the Mishnah. It's brought down in the Talmud that he decided that that the people said there was not rain, so they said we have to pray for rain. So he said, I'm going to make a deal with God. He went outside, he drew a circle around himself. This is where he got his name from. He stood in the circle. He said, God, I'm not leaving the circle until you bring rain. And it started to drizzle. And he said, that's not what I meant. So then it starts to pour. He said, that's not what I meant. I wanted rains of blessing. And it starts to fall normally. And it started actually to flood until the point they actually had to go up onto the Temple Mount in order to save themselves from the flood. So they said, Choni, this is wonderful. We have all this rain. We're good to go. But now you got to stop it. This has got to stop. This is good rain, but it's got to stop. And he prayed and he said, I can't pray for it to stop. God's giving a blessing. How can I tell a good thing to stop? So in the end, he said, bring me a bull to make a Thanksgiving offering to God. And he put his hands on it and he said, Master of the universe, your nation Israel, whom you took out of Egypt, cannot tolerate excess good or excess bad. And they were able to go out right away and have food immediately, which something that actually happens here in Minnesota, right where I'm sitting right here. Oh, we're back. Okay. Okay, as we were saying, so right away mushrooms appeared in the story of Choni. So we see from here, the bottom line is that there could be such a thing as too much of a good thing. That because we are not capable of such a thing, it's possible for it to become damaging. So therefore, God says, because God is giving us such an amazing blessing, He's giving us a blessing that's higher than blessing. He's giving us He's the guardian of the blessing, which means it's a blessing that cannot be stopped. God says, I have to make peace. I'm giving you the blessing in a way that you could handle it, which is even a more amazing blessing. Now, even though and we have this idea also. I'm sorry, when it comes to we coming from Shavuos, when it came to the times when by Shavuos, when God gave the Torah, that we had too much revelation that actually says the Jewish people died 2 or 3 times during the Aseret Dibros, during the Ten Commandments. So we see this idea as well over there. Even though the whole purpose of the Ten Commandments is that God should make the world a receptacle for godliness, we see when it was too powerful, it didn't work. Okay, and the last thing we see is that about the actual details of the of nowadays of how we do it. And the custom amongst Ashkenazim is that we only do the blessing during Yom Tov. Why? Because outside the land of Israel, because we want people to be in a happy mood. We see it from the story of Jacob and Esav when they got the blessing from Isaac, from our forefather Isaac, that they were specifically told that Isaac said, I'm going to have a meal, I'm going to be in a good mood, and then I'm going to give a blessing. So we see this idea that we should only give blessings in a good mood. So therefore, we're getting this amazing blessing. We specifically don't want to do it during the week when people are busy. And even on Shabbos, people are worried about what's going to be during the week or that they're not working today, whatever it is. So we save it for a few times a year. And even though amongst Ashkenazim, it is the custom that we don't make the blessing every day, the blessing that we receive on the holiday goes until the next holiday. So it's not like we're not getting the blessing. We get extra powerful blessings throughout that it lasts the whole year. And this Yom Tov in Shavuos, we were very lucky. One of the boys who were visiting, one of our rabbinical students was a Kohen, and we were able to have on this past Shabbos, we had the blessing. So that should keep us going for a little bit. In fact, though, Sephardic Jews do the blessing every single day, even outside the land of Israel. And in a talk once, the Rabbi spoke about this idea that even though we are Ashkenazim, it's a good idea every so often to go to a Sephardic shul and to get a blessing, because this is such an amazing blessing. This is a blessing that we said that is beyond anything we could ever imagine. It's coming from God Himself. God gave it to the priests. He gave them the ability to give this blessing, but really the blessing is coming from God in a way that can never be touched, that no one could ever get to it. So I want to wish everybody a good Shabbos, and we'll see you next week. Let us know if you like this background, if we could fix the Wi-Fi problems. Maybe we'll try it again. All the best.